to start the live and get ready. So, yeah.
Like I said, it's the little things that you have to watch for.
Is it? And nearly a decade ago, my youngest brother passed away. While we were at his house playing out free with ads. And I also hear it's available on Plex and Zumo and Hoopla. Now it's only the beginning, whether you're spending a quiet evening and more. This holiday season.
In Mexico, and I have kind of.
I hope I didn't just give too.
Okay, we're gonna start the story. I'm also live on both TikTok and YouTube, and I have put in some like cream and it's making it look kind of weird. Anyway, so let's start the scary stories, shall we?
Much away. But please welcome Laura from the state of New Mexico.
Hi, Derek. My name is Laura. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I have kind of a secondhand story that I hope you can use. This actually happened in the 90s to my sister when she was about 12 years old. She's recently passed away, but I hope sharing her encounter is kind of one way that I can continue her legacy. But she was spending the night at her neighbor's house. They had a daughter about her age, and they were good friends with each other. In the middle of the night, I want to say maybe it's 1 or 2 in the morning, my sister wakes up, and in the corner of the room, she sees a textbook, full-body gray alien. Classic skinny, short body.
Every time I hear the descriptions of UFO encounters, alien encounters, it always freaks me out. I don't know about you guys. Whenever someone describes it, I'm like, ugh, I would not want to see that. Thank you so much for the likes, coffee cups. Oh my God. And the rose, you are amazing. Thank you so much. But yeah, it freaks me out. And then also, this kind of takes me into another like rabbit hole. So the movie, I keep forgetting the name of it, but it's the one where like people are witnessing UFOs outside of their window and they're getting abducted in like Nome, Alaska. Do you listen to any podcasts that discuss these topics like aliens? Yes, we're listening to one right now. um, so there's this like movie on the UFO stuff, right? And then it turns out that maybe it's the owls or something like that. Well, anyway, if you are into like true crime podcasts, I really recommend you listen to Up and Vanished because they like the host, he every episode is well, the whole season is dedicated to a particular case and every episode is an important thing regarding that case. And they're talking about dispelling the whole thing with like Nome, Alaska and the disappearances and why people go disappearing there on a very realistic issue. So just so you know, keep that in mind. You can watch it, do your thing. Hi over here on YouTube. Hi Night Gaming. Hi Pato. So yeah. Anyway, so let's continue the story though. But that was like UFO descriptions freak me out.
Large head, almond eyes, slit mouth. It was kind of in a sitting, crouched position, hugging its knees basically, and it was just staring out the window. And the reason she could see it in a dark room was that it apparently had an orange kind of amber glow to it. My sister got very scared and pulled her sleeping bag over her head. And she stayed like that for a few minutes and eventually and somehow worked up the courage to peek out again. And it was still there, same position, but now it's staring directly at her.
Oh gosh.
Now the neighbor happened to be coming down with the car.
Why does this remind me of Signs? Does anyone remember Signs? And like in the movie, there like in the house, the alien was in the corner. Hi, Kim. Does anyone remember that? There's like that scene when they're in the corner in the house because like they're invisible and it comes out. Like when she's describing this alien in the corner, I'm like, stop it right now. That movie made me so paranoid that I would not. I was in middle school and my best friend and I watched this movie at the time. And I was like, you are not allowed to leave me alone. You have to wait outside the bathroom. No, as a matter of fact, you have to come inside the bathroom while I use the bathroom. I was that paranoid. That movie made me so scared. Do I have nightmares? Yeah, not often though. But I feel like I've had some nightmares. Not often.
Cold that night, so she starts coughing quite a bit, and this woke up her mom, who eventually came to check on her. And when her mom opened the bedroom door and turned on the light, it was just gone. The real spooky part of this
Oh
happened the
gosh.
next morning. My sister was trying to ask her friend if she saw anything weird the night before. She didn't give any details at this juncture, but her friend's response was, "You saw it too?" And that's when they described the exact same
Oh, thank
thing
you,
and
Mara, for
agreed
the
that they saw the
likes.
exact
I
same
love the
being.
bows and the spider
I've asked my sister
combination.
to retell this story at least 5 times in my life, including well into our 20s and 30s, and each time all of the details have been exactly the same. She's even drawn its face and position for me a couple of times, and it's never changed with any
Scary.
retelling or any number of years that passed between each retelling. I toyed with the notion that she was just kind of playing a mean prank on her sister, but I knew my sister's mannerisms very well, and the way she would tell the story just so fearfully and so seriously has always just stuck with me. That and her friend always corroborated the details too.
No,
I
thank
still live
you.
in this neighborhood, and I pass by this house every day when I walk my dogs, and it still scares me senseless, but it's just one kind of interesting way that I still get to remember her at least, so that's a plus. But that's it. I hope you can use this. Love the show. Thanks.
Well, first of all, may her sister rest in peace. And again, Mara, killing it with the likes. Thank you so much. Um, no, yeah, that's a rest in peace, her sister. But also, I just saw again, I'm thinking of like the movie Signs. And I feel like, has anyone else watched that? Or any other like movies with, well, I'm trying to think of another movie that there's always like the creepy creature in the corner type of thing. Cause that's like a trope in movies. Not dispelling her experience. I'm just simply saying that I feel like I've seen this some way, somehow in some of these movies. So, and here comes my cat to say hi. She's like, that is a scary story. Yes, it is. All right, let's see what the host has to say. By the way, we're listening to the podcast called Monsters Among Us. So,
Thank you, Laura, for preserving your sister's experience. Well, I'll tell you what. If you're going to see an alien anywhere, I think New Mexico is one of the best places to do so. Because the state has a long tradition of UFOs, UAPs, and aliens. And here's a short list that Delaney assembled for me
oh
of all the
geez.
alien/UFO reports from the land of enchantment.
Hello.
Now, this list is pretty hefty, so I'm going to read it quickly. The Trinity UFO case of 1945, the Roswell incident of 1947,
All in
green
Mexico.
fireballs in 1948, the Farmington, New Mexico flap of 1950, the Los Alamos flap of 1952, the Kirtland Air Force Base UFO sighting of 1957, the Superspeed incident of 59, the White Sands incident of 59,
Can't find my
and the Twin
clips.
Buttes incident of 1962. There was the Socorro incident that occurred in 1964,
Oh,
and
here
the
we go.
Hobbs burn case that also occurred in 64.
Like my banks
The
is in my
Cannon Air Force
face.
Base UFO sightings of 76. The
All right,
Hickory
let's move on to a different story.
UFO historic record. Then I have a
Lives with my dad podcast for
one lined up for you that takes us to the end of the program.
All
But
right.
first, please welcome Maddie out of Texas.
Good old Texas.
Hey
Who
there,
here is
my
from
name's
Texas?
Maddie, and I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. I have been binging your podcast for like 2 years now, and I absolutely love it. So I don't live at home with my dad anymore. I'm away at college, but I went home a couple of weeks ago for like a long trip, you know, just to spend time at home with my family. And my little brother, he still lives with my dad, and he's been telling me that the house is haunted now. He's like, oh, I'm seeing this and that around the house. And, you know, I never really put much thought into it because he's kind of a joker, you know, like you take his word with a grain of salt. And so I'm sleeping in what's now the guest bedroom, and I brought my dog with me, and she woke me up, and I just assumed it was like to go outside or something, because she'll do that. She'll like jump on me to like want to go outside, and I just kind of roll over and try to ignore her because it was 2 a.m. I was really tired,
Oh, jeez.
and when I looked over, I was facing the wall because the bed is against the wall in a corner. And when I flip over, I'm facing the wall that's far away from me. And there's this window, and like it brings in the light and everything, so you can really see the room even without the lights on because my dad has all these lights on outside. And I was about to fall asleep,
Ooh, Beetlejuice
and
is
I saw
I had
something.
fun
It
watching
looked like it
Beetlejuice.
fell from like
Thank
the corner of the
you.
ceiling to the corner of the
Natal.
floor, like diagonally, like not like
Thank
it
you
fell
for the
down, it
likes.
fell
Thank
in a
you so
diagonal
much. Are you from
fashion.
Mexico? Is that the
And
Mexican
it scared
flag?
me so bad. And at first I thought I was seeing things, and then my dog, she starts barking. And I'm like, oh crap, first of all, it's 2 a.m., my dad is working in the morning, so I'm like, oh, be quiet, but also I'm really scared because I know I saw something, and I know she saw something because she's barking. So I get up, I take her outside, and I turn on all the lights in the house on my way out, just spending some time to, before I try to go back to sleep in there. But it's the first time I've ever seen anything in the house. And, when I told my dad about it the next morning, he's like, oh, you probably saw something, like, fly from, like, the corner to the window, and he just, like, reflected. But if that window doesn't face that wall, I would have seen it on the wall opposite the window. I saw it on the wall adjacent to the window. So it didn't really make any sense. And, like, nothing fell. Like, I checked. And even if it did fall, it wouldn't have fallen diagonally. It was really weird. It's the first time I've ever experienced anything in that house, that wasn't, normal. And it was just so weird. And I think it's weird that my brother's been telling me that the house is haunted now. But yeah, I hope I don't see anything else anymore. But it was really weird, and it scared the crap out of me. I had to get up and, like, do some things before I tried to fall back asleep. So yeah, that's my story. I absolutely love your podcast. I listen to it every week. Sometimes I just re-listen to episodes. Have a good night.
Thank you, Maddie. Now it sounds like something.
Why would I want to
was happy that you were
summon
back from
a
school.
serial killer?
Though I find it kind of odd that your dad was the only one not convinced they're in the house. Now, if he happens to come around, let us know what happened to him to make him do so. Because I bet that
Yeah, that is, it's hard to say. I don't know. I mean, it is 2 a.m. I think that's the hard part of some of these paranormal encounters. Like, I do think it's possible to experience things. You wake up and you're seeing something, and that's very scary. But I do think that sometimes I'm always very cautious with stories where people wake up in the middle of the night and they're still half asleep because, your mind can play tricks on you. You are half asleep, so there is that. So I am live on both TikTok and YouTube. So if I do react to one or the other, just know that if you don't see it, it might be the other platform. Beetlejuice was fun. I had so much fun watching that film. I think I watched it more than once at this point. And yes, last night I did go to the Crimes of Passion Museum, and it was really, really fun. I recommend that if you're ever in LA and you're ever near like East Los Angeles area, Melrose particular, you have to check it out. It was I had a lot. It's kind of meant, so my understanding when I went, and you can check out my stories over on TikTok or Instagram. But basically, there's this museum out there, and you can do it with like a really good friend, but it's encouraged that you go with like a partner, like, whether it's like, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever. And you do little challenges together, and it was a lot of fun. And so, yeah. Um, okay, so I think I missed. Oh, thank you for the share, Kate. Oh my God, thank you so much. You guys are great. Shall we see if there's another story? Okay, I think we will.
experience would also make for a great entry. Until then, thanks again, Maddie, for calling in. All right, folks, here's that final ad break. We appreciate you guys visiting our sponsors. That keeps them coming back.
I think sometimes he does like bonus questions.
Botox or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medication.
Ways to tack and
Talking and give.
And
Oh, here we go with the bonus.
At night on a Saturday night fever, and he's the friendliest ever. I just wanted to share this story with you.
Okay, the bonus. We'll listen to the.
Hey, Derek. My name's Jake. I'm in Montville, Connecticut, southeastern Connecticut, where the Mohegan Sun is. A long-time listener, first-time caller. I just wanted to share this story with you. I listen to podcasts every day. I'm catching up on the older episodes. Anyway, I want to share this story that happened to me a couple weeks ago. I took my dog for a walk. I have a 1.5-year-old golden retriever, and he's the friendliest guy on the planet. And would go up to anybody and lick them, do it. Like anybody could steal this dog. I said this
Oh my
I
god.
got the dog. So I
Your
let him
dog's so
out one night.
friendly,
It's
you'd
about
steal your
10:30 at
dog.
night on a Saturday night. He's quiet, no one's around. So I let him off the leash, and he takes off running. And I live in a pretty bad part of town, so I lose him. I don't see him, and I go, you know what? I'll
I
find him.
am
He'll
ready
come
for
running back to me.
Christmas.
And I walked up a street, and I saw
See
him
if I can
probably about
find.
100 feet away from me.
Oh, here we go.
Somebody had, they had their back turned to me. They had him by the collar. And my first initial thought is, oh, great, somebody's got him. Because he tends to run off, and he's, he likes to go explore, and he's a teenage dog, so he's eager to, run and go do his thing. So when I saw this person
Just want
had
to
him by
try
the
this
collar,
new.
I go, hey, I call it out to him. I said, hey. And the guy looks at me. I go, hey, that's my dog. And I'm kind of jogging over, running over to him. And when he turned around, he was quite a distance away from me. He turned around, and when he saw me kind of jogging over to him, he started speeding up and almost dragging my dog by the collar.
Oh.
And it switched in my brain, and I go, okay, well, he's not trying to hold my dog. He's trying to take my dog. So I run over to him.
That's scary.
And I get very close to him. I'm running up almost right to him, and I go, hey, that's my dog. Let me sit. And he turns around and punches me right directly in the face.
Jeez.
And I was more surprised than anything. So I get into a small scuffle with the guy, and the whole interaction lasted maybe 10, 12 seconds, very quick. But as I noticed him, I got this weird feeling of dread as I was, fighting with the guy to
That's
try to
scary.
get my dog back. And I've heard all the stories about the black-eyed people and people with their eyes that look hollow. So when I looked at him, he didn't say a word to me this whole interaction. And the brief second that I looked at his face, his eyes almost looked like they were sewn shut almost. He didn't have eyelids. It was more like in place of eyes, it was just skin. And I got this really weird feeling of dread and something is not normal, something is not right. And as I'm in the midst of trying to get my dog away from this person, my dog he's a big dummy, and he is wagging his tail and almost licking me and the guy. He didn't have any feeling of protection towards me. How dogs get a sixth sense and try to protect their owners.
Hello.
He didn't have any sort of protection. He was more just playing, playful, almost like he knew the guy. And in the midst of this scuffle with this person, I got the sense to grab my dog's name is Maverick, grab him by the collar, run, and turn the other way and just get out of there. And I don't know, what came over me at that moment, something just clicked. So I grab him, I'm running down the street with him, and I am struggling to click his leash onto his collar, and he's jumping around, wagging his tail, thinking that everything's a game. I didn't look back once. This person or whatever didn't say anything to me, but I woke up the next morning, I had a full-on black
Thank
eye,
you for the
really
follow.
puffy, bruised shiner, and
that's okay. I don't care. You don't even wear makeup.
I had a black eye the next day, and I caught one glimpse of the guy, and he had no eyes, which just stuck with me. The image of him stuck with me. I can remember his face. I can remember his hair, what he was wearing. I saw him very clearly.
That is so creepy, someone trying to steal your dog.
And as I looked, it's not like his eyes were closed. I didn't see any eyelashes. He just had no eyes. Just blank skin where his eyes should have been. I wasn't unsure of what I'd seen. I was absolutely all there, and I was sure of what I'd seen. He had no eyes, and I know, I've heard of the black-eyed children and the shadow men, and this and that. No, this guy was a legitimate person that physically assaulted me. I did enough going to police. Nothing came of it. But yeah, I've never heard anybody on the show.
Right?
I've been a long-time listener. Never heard anybody say that somebody has no eyes. It was almost
it's so okay. I'm gonna pause real quick because I'm just kind of out of shock with this. It's just one of those things where you're in the woods and you're walking your dog. Your dog is so friendly, and I mean, in general, I don't know about you, but for me, my dog my pets, they're more than just my pets. They're my fur babies. They are my family. And so to go out there on this walk and someone is trying to take your fur baby, and then on top of that, they look inhuman, like that is pretty scary in itself. It's scary that someone would try to take your pet to begin with, but then you add a layer of something odd, some, inhuman looking person or something or somebody, that makes it scary, obviously, so I don't know, this guy is just like, but the thing is, if their dog is acting friendly, could it be like, maybe is it a person with perhaps like, some type of, abnormalities, that they were born with, that they couldn't help with, and maybe they're dealing with mental health, who knows. But yeah, I mean, because if their dog is reacting, not reacting, like there's danger, I don't know, it's tough to say, you know what I mean?
Real. And when I told people about this story right off the bat, I left this detail out because then people would think I'm crazy. But this is what happened. I love the show, man. Hopefully this call gets on it. I'd like to hear if anybody has had a similar experience. Yeah. So thanks.
Thank you, Jake. What in the hell? An eyeless dog snatcher. Well, let's break this story down, shall we? Starting with this. There is a known birth defect in which the eyes are completely covered by a layer of
That's what I was gonna
smooth skin.
say.
It's called cryptothamos, and here's how iWiki describes it. Cryptothamos, when translated from Latin, means hidden eye. As such, cryptothamos presents with fused eyelids covering the globe in socket. The skin of the forehead is continuous with the skin of the cheek. There is an absence of eyebrows, lashes, and gland structures. The overlying skin is fused with the cornea, and there is no conjunctival sac present. Now, if you go over to the show notes, you can see a photo example of this defect. And I feel bad for...
Yeah, so I'm saying I've seen some people with like an unfortunately, like, they were born with something, a type of, abnormality. And, I've seen them on TikTok, I've seen them online. And so that's, I'm like, well, maybe like this person might have been frantic or something. Who knows? It's really tough to say. Give me 1 second. I'm going to close my door. But yeah, so, and then also the dog wasn't reacting necessarily like, oh, we're in danger or anything like that. So I don't know, because sometimes I do trust my pets, like you're saying, Kim, like pets can sense, in my opinion, good and bad. So if the pet wasn't like, the dog was not reacting a certain way, then I don't know. I just kind of feel like could have been somebody with an abnormality.
Anyone that suffers from this. It does not look comfortable. But there's an issue with this explanation. First off, how would someone with that condition see a dog to abduct it?
Very good question.
Also, as of 2018, only 55 cases of cryptothamos have ever been recorded, making it incredibly rare. But outside of a dude with a mean hook and a birth defect, what else could possibly explain what was reported? Well, coincidentally, it reminds me of a story about the Monroe faceless people.
Called by the locals the House of the Faceless People, legend has it that a group of unfortunates live in this old barn with one caretaker who is never seen leaving or entering it. Presumably, the caretaker goes out only at midnight with his charges so that they can at least get some fresh
That's what I'm
air.
thinking, Kim.
The sunlight
just
is
won't go
not
with anybody.
favorable to these individuals who have no face. They have no eyes, nose, or ears. Just a mouth outlined with pale lips and bony hands grasping around constantly as if trying to find their way in the world. Curiosity seekers who are clever enough to locate the old barn are usually chased away by the caretaker. Yet there have been reports in Monroe of the occasional faceless person who decided to take a stroll through the woods and make his way to the main road.
That clip from the YouTube channel Nick Donut. Now, this isn't just some random legend that I linked to this story, simply because of the missing eyes detail. It runs much deeper than that. Where these faceless people are said to reside is also in the state of Connecticut. In fact, it's only about a 90-minute drive from where Jake was accosted. In the grand scheme of things, that's right down the road. So is it possible that one of these faceless individuals made their way all the way to Montville?
Hi.
I don't know. I suppose it's possible. But moreover, it's an awfully big coincidence that both of these stories originated from the same general area.
That is interesting.
Now maybe we'll get lucky here and a listener can fill us in on what we're missing. If that's you, give us a call at 888-608-NIGHT or shoot us an email at monstersamonguspodcast@gmail.com. Now, whoever or whatever it was that attacked Jake, we're sorry that it happened, but oh so thankful that you decided to tell us about it. Thank you again, Jake, for the phone call. And folks, that's going to wrap things up for us here tonight.
Okay, so yeah, this was half of the podcast episode from yesterday because I did a live stream yesterday as well. So I feel like we can go to another episode. By the way, if people are wondering, we are listening to the podcast called Monsters Among Us. I'm going to go back to their page. Oh, here we go.
This is an ad from BetterHelp.
Nope.
This holiday.
Pause. Please.
All right, ready for the next story.
Hey, Derek.
Oh, sorry. Before we start the new story, there are some comments from Kim over here on YouTube. So it makes you think too that dogs can have a good sense about the paranormal, people and paranormal, and I would go to the ends of the earth for mine. Absolutely. Alvi says hello, and then Kim says dogs are good at picking up emotions because anytime I was ever sad. Yes, dogs are so smart. Well, just in general, like I have both cats and dogs, and I just feel like whenever I've been sad or anxious or anything like that, I've had my fur babies comfort me. I feel like they're so attuned, they're so smart, but in general, since like the story was about a dog potentially someone trying to abduct a dog, I just feel like dogs are so smart, and I feel like if something was trying to put them in harm's way, they would definitely, I don't know, get upset, get defensive, you know what I mean? I had a very sweet corgi. So one of my very first corgis I adopted from Minnesota before I moved to Colorado. And one of the best dogs I've ever had. He's no longer with us, but I remember that he was like the sweetest corgi ever. Like it was my first corgi and the sweetest dog I had. Like I'm talking about, I would take him to the dog park and we would be playing with he'd be playing with other dogs. And if the dog was aggressive or trying to assert dominance, like my corgi would roll on his back, like, I'm just chill. I'm just trying to be nice. Like he would never really try to fight with other dogs or anything like that. Like I always just like, you know, in my mind had him as a very sweet, sweet little boy. So anyways, one night we're walking. So I'm walking him at like, this is around the winter time because, you know, when around winter, speaking of like daylight savings in wintertime, we ended up, you know how like daylight savings, it gets darker during the wintertime. So, or it gets dark out quicker. So I'm walking and it gets dark really quickly. And I'm like in my apartment complex with my dog. And it was really unfortunate because when I was walking, this guy just kind of comes out of nowhere and I'm like very naive. I'm not noticing, like I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, he's just like, this guy's just like there, I guess. He's probably like heading to his apartment, whatever. And I started to notice my corgi act very differently. He has a whole different demeanor. He starts like standing as tall as he can. He has his ears perked up. And it turns out that like he started becoming alert. Like he started to feel uncomfortable with this guy lurking around us, being in our space. And so like I move out of the sidewalk and into like by the tree, by the bushes, because like my dog had to go pee or whatever, or at least I thought that's what it was. And so this guy stops looks at us and says, hello. And immediately my dog, he charged at him and started barking like aggressively. Like he had like the deepest growl ever. Like he sounded like a German shepherd, okay? And that was enough to scare this guy away, and the guy left. And I was just like, it was weird though, because again, we're walking and he's just there, and I'm thinking he's going to his apartment, but he stops to try to say hi. I'm like, go away. Like, and then plus the guy reeked really bad, and it was not a fun moment. Dogs have emotions. Yes, there are babies for sure. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, even sweet dogs sometimes know when to protect their pack. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's kind of, I'm still with that. Like if it didn't pick up anything odd, I don't know. I'm on the fence with it. You know?
And I'm calling because I wanted to leave my story. I guess you could say it's kind of a paranormal story, maybe even demonic, I would guess. Just wanted to say, though, from the beginning that I do love your podcast. I've been listening to it for quite some time now, and I really enjoy hearing everyone else's stories. It gives it sort of a realistic vibe. But anyway, good job in the podcast. Just wanted to give you kudos. So, my story happened, and this is probably the only thing that I've ever experienced that was truly paranormal or demonic. It happened well over 5 years ago, in my early 20s. I was dating this guy at the time that was kind of a scientific guy, didn't really believe in religion. He was kind of like go against the grain. If it's not provable, then I don't believe it kind of guy. So I was brought up as a Catholic. My family, they would take me to Mass and all that. So I never really questioned my religion. I just knew I was brought up Catholic, so that's just what I believed in. I wasn't really going to church or praying or anything. I wasn't really a practicing Catholic. I just, grew up with it, so it kind of stuck. Anyway, I was talking to, my boyfriend at the time over the phone, and he was just telling me all this information about how the Bible is a bunch of crap and saying how, it kind of contradicts itself. It'll say one thing and then right after it'll say something else that kind of goes against what it just said. Basically, calling it a bunch of BS and how it makes us all look like sinners and just a bunch of negative things against the Bible and religion. So me, I had never questioned my religion. I just kind of was like, okay, I was listening to everything he was saying, and I guess it kind of stuck with me. I was like, wow, you know what? He's got a point. I never realized, because I never read the Bible, I just never questioned it. So we hung up, and that night I went to sleep, and maybe a few hours, not even, I got woken up. And now I got woken up because my bed was shaking. Now, it wasn't shaking like Exorcist up and down crazy either, but it was shaking. And
Hi,
it woke
April.
me up. Immediately I freaked out. I didn't know what the heck to do. I had the blanket pulled over, the covers were pulled over my eyes. I really wanted to see. I was curious. But then part of me is like, you know what? I don't really know if I want to see that. But the only thing I could think to do was like, you know what? I'm going to start praying. That's the only thing that came to mind. So I started praying, and mind you, I don't know any prayers fully. I don't know anything. I just started blurting out all the holy things that I knew, any bits and pieces I could muster up. And then I started praying, and the shaking did stop momentarily. And I was wide awake. I'm like, okay, did it stop? I was too scared to pull the covers back because I didn't want to see. And it started up again shaking. So the only thing I could do was, again, just pray. And I started praying again. The shaking stopped. The shaking altogether maybe was like a minute or two. It wasn't a long time. It wasn't crazy. It was just like shaking, kind of like a massage chair would feel, something like that. It was shaking. I was fully awake. So yeah, the shaking happened twice, and then after I prayed, it went away. So the next morning, after I finally was able to sleep, I don't even know how that night, the next morning I looked in my room, to see, okay, did we have an earthquake? I live in Illinois. I should have added that. So,
I was going to say, earthquakes?
Not common, but they do happen every so often. I checked the news, the weather, all that. I asked my family members, I'm like, did you guys feel anything? Was there an earthquake? Nothing of the sort. And nothing fell. So I couldn't really question what it was, because if it had been an earthquake, then perhaps things would have been on the floor, something like that, or it would have at least been on the news.
I don't know.
I can only assume that what I experienced,
Ooh, my eyebrows look really thick.
The thing I can, describe describe it as kind of like a falling from grace. If you've ever heard of something like that, it's when someone starts to kind of question their faith, their religion, their beliefs, and so they like fall from grace. It's called, it's kind of like, okay, fine, you no longer believe in us, and here you go. And my guess is that, I guess I was up for grabs, and that was like, if you believe in this stuff, then that was maybe demonic. Ever since then, I wouldn't consider myself a Catholic or even a religious person, but I think I've always held on to a little bit of faith at that point. So it's kind of like, you know what? I really don't want to experience this again. Let me just hold on to the what if, because I didn't see anything. Just that experience alone to me made me think, okay, something is out there, whether it's godly or demonic, I don't know, but something is out there, and I don't want to experience anything like that again. I do love all the supernatural, paranormal stuff. I will say I'm a skeptic when I need to be, but I know that there's things out there we can't explain. So I always keep that in the back of my mind. I try to reason as to why things happen. I just could not figure out a reason. That's the only thing I've ever experienced since then, and this was over 5 years ago. I haven't experienced anything. I know I was fully awake. I know what I saw, what I felt. So I know that this was real to me. My imagination is just not that good, unfortunately. But I wanted to share my story because I figured, if anyone else has experienced something quite like that, as far as like falling from grace or something like that, where they felt like they were officially in the hold of something demonic, like, once you give up faith, is that how it works? I've always found it interesting. So I wanted to give you my little piece of information and see, if anyone else has experienced it, or just to kind of pass along.
Okay, so I want to add in like my thoughts. So she did say she lives in Illinois. She did explain why she didn't think her bed shaking was an earthquake, but the reason why I still kind of lean into the earthquake side is because I live here in Los Angeles, and I remember when I was 15 years old, I was staying, well, at the time when I was 15, I was not living in the state. I was living with my mom outside of the state in Minnesota. Anyway, so I was here though for the summer, and I was at my uncle's, and my cousin and I, she had stepped out to go to like the, like, like a, I guess it's not a I'm drawing a blank, like, we'll just say gas station, like, it's just a quick stop over, like, it was by the corner of like where we lived. Anyway, so I'm here in LA, and I'm 15 years old, and I remember that, like, I'm in the shower, and I guess like an earthquake had been happening around this time. I don't know. But I get out of the shower, I sit on the bed, and the only thing that shook was the bed. So I'm thinking it's like my younger cousin, like my other younger cousin, not the one that was at the gas station. And so I'm like, oh, haha, get off under the bed. I look under the bed. No one was underneath the bed. My cousin comes running in, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Why? What do you mean? What's wrong? What's wrong?" She's like, "There was an earthquake. Did anything shake?" And I'm like, "Well, the only thing that shook was the bed, but nothing from the dresser shook, nothing else shook, nothing from the shelves, nothing, just the bed." So I was like, "Oh, weird." But it goes back to like, yeah, when it comes to earthquakes, it really just depends on the foundation of your home and how strong the earthquake is. Sometimes it won't make all these things shake. In my case, it definitely just made the bed shake and not anything else. And that's why I thought somebody was underneath the bed or playing a prank on me. Had my cousin not come running back and said, "Hey, it was an earthquake," I would have been like, "It's something scary." There's also another story that recently I saw surfacing on the internet, and it was about these paranormal investigators that helped basically get the owners to understand that what was causing the floorboards to shake and move was the vibration of the train tracks not too far from their house. And on top of that, where the house was positioned was near a very busy road, that it was creating so much vibration with the combination of the train and the busy street that the floorboards was moving around. So I think that is very fascinating. I mean, I'm curious to understand that, essentially, just because the reason why I lean towards that more so than the religious part of this story is because she does state a few different times that she was not religious. She had no idea of what was in the Bible or anything like that. So in her mind, I'm wondering if perhaps, since she is on the side of like, I don't know, I'm dating somebody that is very much a skeptic, but maybe not very much like a compassionate skeptic. Maybe like I want to believe in something, and it so happens that the closest thing that happened was a natural disaster, or not, I wouldn't call it a disaster, but an earthquake, and then I could think of that too. But I also think of perhaps the fact that she wasn't tied to anything. Perhaps she was looking for a calling or something to have an experience, and that could be it too. So like I'm thinking of two different sides here, but I mean I'm a big believer of the paranormal and all this stuff. I just think about the other possibilities too. What do you think of the movies like The Exorcist, when her bed starts shaking, moving? Oh my God, yeah, that scene scared me. I'm not really okay. I'll say this: the first Exorcist movie was great, scary. I remember watching it as a kid, which probably wasn't supposed to be in the room. So for context, I have older sisters, and one of them would watch scary movies, and I would be in the room when she would be watching these movies. And she was a teenager; she didn't know any better either. But I do like the Exorcist films, the first one at least. I'm not a big fan of the ones afterwards because I feel like the after a certain amount of times that they remade these films, like I think maybe like the first couple, fine. The first one, loved it. But it gets to a point where the narrative of even The Exorcist is very fear-mongering, in my opinion. I feel like it's just the same recipe over and over again. I watched the most recent one, and I just was like, they could have done something unique with this one, and they just dropped the ball. And essentially, it just felt like, oh no, she used the pendulum, so she got possessed. The girls got possessed over a pendulum. I'm like, that's not how it works. So, hello. But yeah, the first one, loved it, great. I do think that there is definitely things that can happen supernaturally. I'm just saying from her story, I'm curious to learn more about like the bed shaking, because I think of my experience and like when I experienced the bed shaking and how I could have easily scared myself, spooked myself over that.
Information.
But that doesn't mean some unseen form.
Okay, let's see what he says.
Not just for the paranormal or for religion, but for everyday life as well. Bring the receipts, as they say.
The receipt.
But that doesn't mean some unseen force wasn't shaking Elvira's bed. I very much believe that she
And her name,
had that
Elvira?
experience.
Perfect.
But outside of loud construction work going on outside her home, or a low and slow earthquake that no one seemed to notice.
See, that's what I was thinking too.
I'm out of suggestions. But we do thank you, Elvira, for sharing here with us.
Yeah, could be anything, you know?
Now, folks, when we return, more possessed items, and later places that seem to be controlled by some unseen force. Possessed places coming up. Don't go anywhere.
All right.
Frank from Long Island. I'm calling about a little weird situation that happened to me maybe around 2002, 2003, maybe 2001. So we've had this cable box for many years. It was an old school Tocom. Had the wood graining on it, the old red numbering. And I remember
I'm
night,
trying to fix these eyebrows
I was watching
for a hot
TV,
minute.
I went to sleep, I turned it off, and all of a sudden I heard just the cable box click on. It had that distinct clicking noise. Everybody, grew up in the late 80s and 90s. You had the old school cable boxes. It had that distinct sound to it. Now, this would happen once in a while that the box would turn on, and it would always come up as 00 in the numbers. You would have to put, the channel in yourself. And I remember one night it clicked on and it said hi. And I remember I woke up, I saw it, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, how the hell is that? Like, it's an old box. I mean, I want to say it's from maybe 89, 90. I remember watching Terminator 2 on pay-per-view. That's how old it is. It was around that time when it comes to the age of the box. But from all the years that we've had it, not once has it ever, turn on and then say those letterings. At first, I thought I was getting tracked. It was a hot box. If anybody don't know what a hot box is, you could pretty much watch whatever channel you want, pretty much for free. And I remember back in the day, they would have those websites where you could like rat people out and like have their cable box turned off. So I thought like, oh crap, somebody's onto us. We're gonna get our cables shut off. But I remember I left it on overnight, and when I woke up in the morning, I took a picture of it. Just back in the day when color cell phones had just come out. So I was showing all my friends and some family members, and they were like, "What the hell?" Like, there's cable boxes at that time that you would turn on and you would say hello, whatever. But I was just perplexed because of how old it was. Like, I've never seen anything like that happen before. And even my friends and family were like, yeah, that's weird. Like, how the hell would that happen? I mean, I'm sure this might be a possible explanation for it. I don't have an explanation for it. I didn't feel anything like sinister or like feel any uneasiness around when it happened. I just thought it was so weird. Maybe you can explain it. I mean,
Oh,
I
interesting,
looked up
Melissa.
online on Google and
Was it like
forums,
scary?
even just to this present day, because I still think about it once in a while. Like wow, I still can't believe that happened, and nobody, even on like Reddit forums, nobody can explain it. But yeah, that's my story. Hope you can use it. Love the show. Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you as always, Frank.
Such a throwback. Yeah, such a throwback. I don't even remember like these hot boxes or anything like that. But what's interesting? I want to add in a story that I remember. So do you guys remember back in the early 2000s the show The Girls Next Door? It was like the girlfriends, like Hugh Hefner's girlfriends. Well, I listened to the Girls Next Level podcast, and Holly and Bridget were talking about how they had this TV in Bridget's room, and how so apparently I think like the TV, like I think Holly was just not really a believer at the time of the paranormal, and they had a weird, like the TV just like I think turned on by itself, and they checked in with like the security people and all this stuff, and like no one no one knew what happened. And like I think Holly at the time, I mean again, take what I say with a grain of salt because I don't remember all the fine details, but I'm just like remembering like a very simplistic form of it. But basically it was just like she wanted something to happen and it did, and it was with like the TV. And so it just this story makes me think of that. Thank you for the follow. Kayla, thank you for the follow. Thank you so much. And no, I don't know anybody who has colored their eyebrows pink. Okay, cool. So let's listen to the next story.
This one could go either way. Either someone or something got into Frank's cable box and manipulated it in order to communicate with Frank. Or a very old cable unit went on the fritz. I'll let you be the judge there.
I think it's a glitch. I don't know.
Possessed
for this
or
story.
Not, Frank, it's a fun little story. And we thank you again for sharing it with us. Now, folks, if you have a story you would like to share here on the program, a true story, give our hotline a call at 888-608-NIGHT. That's 888-608-NIGHT. Or record your story on your phone in the form of a voice memo and email it to me at monstersamonguspodcast@gmail.com. Now, our next possessed item comes to us anonymously. Please welcome this mystery caller, all the way from the UK.
Hi, Derek. I'm calling over in England, Halifax in West Yorkshire. I'm going to tell you about what I think was a possessed item I inadvertently bought back in the late 90s over in Manchester in a hotel called the Sasha Hotel. I would have been around 17, 18. I didn't know at the time that hotel's quite seedy, not the best place for clientele. However, I was massively into films, and my uncle took me, so there's a lot of like horror films, and I bought a copy of The Exorcist on a VHS cassette tape.
Oh my god, The Exorcist is being brought back up.
Looking back at it, it was a bad copy. Some weird stains on the back of it. Didn't think much of it at the time. I was at college and I was doing all kinds of like horror trailers and things for media studies I was doing at the time. So I had a lot of friends around and doing like occult trailers, zombies and red paint everywhere. That film was, I did watch it with my friends. Didn't really think anything of it.
Too out there.
On the night that we did watch that film, we were just messing around. One of the friends said, "Oh, let's summon the devil." This is after I'd watched the film. And he mentioned, if we say the Lord's Prayer backwards with all the windows open, the devil appeared in the mirror, which he didn't do, but it did scare me a bit. Made me excuses and went home. A few days after that, the video tape, the VHS cassette tape, I had quite a few films in the room. Still lived in my mum and dad's then in Stockport in the Manchester area. I heard it move on the shelf. I didn't see it. As I woke up, I heard it move across the shelf. So I didn't think much of it. So I don't know what it was. Didn't really think much of it at the time. However, that tape, it did continue to move around the house. It got lost. I found it one day
That's
next
a little
to one
weird.
of the house plants inside the home, and the plant was dead. And I don't mean it hadn't been watered in a few days. It was proper black, brown, dead, because the tape was next to it.
That's weird.
Around that time as well, as I say, it was the late 90s. We had an infestation of a wasp nest in my room. It was a loft conversion. They hated me, the wasps. And I know you shouldn't disturb a wasp, but they mind their own business. However, they go for me. It still happens to this day. I still think whether I've got an unhealthy hatred of them, they hate me and I hate them. But that was something else I had to deal with. Quite a lot was going on.
Okay, side note. Just in general, who here likes, no one likes wasps. I've never met anybody that likes wasps. Just on a side note, we all hate wasps, right? I feel like we all, this is normal. I'm nothing against him. It just made me think of this. Almost everybody I know says they hate wasps, and rightfully so. They suck. I've never met anybody that's like, oh, I like wasps. You know what I mean? Maybe people that I'll meet people that like bees, but that's different. Or they're like a beekeeper and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that makes sense. But wasps, I've never met anybody that was like, oh yeah, I like wasps. I don't know. It's just, I feel like we all collectively know wasp sucks. If you have to mention a wasp infestation in your home, we all know it sucks. We don't need a reminder, but just in general, not nitpicking at this person, just saying we all know collectively, wasp sucks. If anything, someone should make the announcement if they like a wasp and explain to me why they like it or like wasps. That's what I want to know. You know what I mean? Kim says, my sister was always afraid of the film and thought it was evil. Oh, interesting. I was stung on my head by a wasp. Yeah, wasps suck. I just never, I don't know, never met anybody that was like, I like wasps. Anyway, just made a little tangent on that.
Something that really did disturb me the most was one night, in the middle of the night, bear in mind I was about 17, 18 years old at the time, heard a voice in the night say, mines, and it was a deep, guttural, real, it's indescribable sound the way it was said, mines, as in the human mind.
That's creepy.
And I was absolutely frozen in terror. Didn't sleep that night.
Okay.
The very next day,
oops,
I got all the tape when I found it. Again, it had gone missing, and I threw it in the local tip and destroyed it. Everything stopped then after that. Thankfully, things calmed down. Apart from the wasps, again, they go for me. So
they go for everybody.
What do you think about this? I've been seeing films recently, The Conjuring. I know they kept possessed items, and by me destroying this item, I don't know if they've inadvertently let a spirit out. I'm interested to see what you think about the wasp situation. Anyway, I love the show. Keeps me going. I'm 41 now.
Look, I found this liquid.
But the story's always stuck with me. People laugh at it when I tell it, so stop saying it, but I'm glad I found a show where people share things. That I'm interested to see what you think. Thank you very much. Bye.
That's
Thank
cute.
you, caller. Yeah,
My eyes are very shiny, but whatever.
We might suggest everyday explanations for otherworldly activity, and we might ask a lot of questions, but we're not going to laugh at you. That's not what this is all about. But speaking of questions, After hearing this call a few times, I now wonder if this isn't more of a cursed object situation than it is a possessed item one.
Interesting.
Now, regardless of all that, this video cassette killed a houseplant.
This one.
Well, that's amazing.
Okay, let's see how this
and
is going to go. I'm going to
terrifying.
try this
In my
stamp thing. And it goes on the left side.
Is anyone else thinking? Now let's take another quick break. But I have all kinds of possession stories waiting for you.
Oh, that
on
did
the
not.
other end.
That did not work out the way I wanted
I'll
it
be right
to.
back.
That did not work out. Okay.
And just by going.
Enjoying it.
Don't mind. Let's hear about a few possessed places. Beginning with this anonymously submitted entry.
Like, is
from
it?
parts unknown.
Oh, there we go. Like, is it working?
Hello. I just discovered your show and enjoying it. I know I'm late. There's like 14 seasons now. But it
Yay,
inspired me
that looks
to share
cool.
my own encounters.
That's pretty neat.
Especially the creepiest one I've
There's a
had.
little stamp
I
if you want to
prefer
see it.
to remain
It's pretty
anonymous. So I'll start by saying, on my wife's side of the family, the women seem to have a genetic or like a hereditary predisposition to sensing paranormal activities. They seem to be more connected.
Okay, side note. Nothing, no hate to this person. But when people say, my wife's or so-and-so's family has this position to sense the paranormal, I think because, like, I'm so used of having like, literally telling people all the time. But it's like we all have the ability to perceive energy in some way, in our own way, in our own expression. I think would I say some families are more open-minded to the paranormal? Absolutely. It also has something to do with culture and all of that jazz, and religion as well, perhaps too. But to say this family is susceptible, it's like, maybe? But also, like, there's some people out there that, like, depending on, like, where they grew up, their culture, their religion, like, those play a factor. And plus, everybody has the ability to, like, perceive things. And also, if you live in a house that's, like, haunted, then most of them have an experience, then there is also that as well. So I always find it fascinating when people say, ooh, this one came on pretty strong. I'm gonna fix that one. All right.
To, ghostly beings, spirits,
Like,
and in turn, they
kinda
seem
runny,
to be back
but
toward them as well. So about 4 or 5 years ago,
this
we were living in our first house, me, my wife, and all our kids. And we started having a bunch of different
one came
things
really
happen
strong.
throughout the night. My wife and my oldest daughter would both
Fix
report
that.
hearing what sounded like whispers coming from the hallway leading to my 2 oldest children's bedrooms and things like that, and then walking in the night. But I know I don't have a lot of time, so I'll get to the main event. I mean, in short, I'm a Christian. In the Bible, Jesus gives us power over demons. So whenever my wife or kids would report hearing anything, I would go and clean it, quote unquote. I would go through and, tell them they're not welcome here, seal it off in the name of Jesus, and that seemed to end it. But one night, both my wife and my youngest daughter kept waking up in turns, complaining of nightmares. First it would be my wife, and then I would tell her it was okay to go back to sleep, and then my youngest daughter would wake up, and it just kept going all night. And so the next morning, so keep in mind it's bright day out, that's when these beings
get a Q-tip for this, maybe.
I started searching for this presence, feeling around the room, and I located it in our closet. And so I approached the closet, I opened the doors, and I felt around some more, and I could feel it at its strongest point in a corner of ours. And so I went through my regular spiel. I made the sign of the cross. I told it it wasn't welcome here and to be gone. And I'm getting shivers just thinking about it. As soon as I had finished, I can't really explain it because there was nothing visible, but I felt the presence rush towards me, and I could feel
Part of me's like, should I?
something. Yeah, I mean, it was inches from my face. I could almost see it staring back at me, and it sent shivers up my spine, and
Wow.
it made me chilled.
Okay, I'm gonna grab a wipe, like, for this, because it is, came on, I'm not sure if I'm really happy with it. It feels darker than this side. But Kim says, I've always felt the paranormal is real. I remember seeing my sister's husband's father checking in on him after he passed. I could see him out of the corner of my eye, and I was in the family room, and he was sleeping, and his dad, who passed away, crossed the hallway to the bedroom to check in on him. I saw him clear as day. He did this at least 3 times. He passed away downstairs in our house, so I always felt his energy. Yeah, I could totally see his energy being there for sure. Thank you for sharing that. And also sad that that happened. Okay. Part of me is like, I might just fix this off camera at this point and just try to finish this up. Okay.
Just a sick feeling in my stomach. You know, I'll be honest, I had doubts about my ability to handle this thing for a few moments. But long story short, I bared down, and, you know, me and this entity, whatever it was, my wife and I took to calling it a sleep demon. I kept blessing the area with the cross and going through my scriptures, and eventually I felt the presence leave. And luckily, we have not been haunted by that thing.
Oh, thank you so much for the likes.
Then. So that's my story, and thanks. I hope to hear it on the show.
Thanks, caller. So what do you think, listener? Was this closet possessed by something? A sleep demon?
Haunted closets.
Or was this something else? You know, just like with possessed items, it's very difficult to discern between a possessed closet and a haunted one. What's the difference, really? But man, does it make for a spooky story, either way. And for that, we thank you, mystery caller. And I hope whatever it was, it left for good. Now, folks, here's where I'd normally tell you to go to monstersamonguspodcast.com and to click the shop tab. But this week, I'm going to plug a film I made instead. My pal David Flora and I spent a few weeks out in the deserts of Southern California, chasing legends of UFOs, ghosts, ghost lights, government cover-up, and even Bigfoot, all here in SoCal. Now, the film we shot.
Thank you so much, Ayo.
In the desert, High Strangeness in the Brago Triangle.
Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you for the likes.
For only a few bucks. Just visit Brago.
Oops.
January of 2021. I'm in the National Guard, and I was up in Fort Custer, Michigan for a course up there. We were in between phases for this course, and we had like 3 days that we kind of had to ourselves while the instructors were getting the course put together, and we could have a break.
Like
and my
really heavy on.
Also from Indiana, had come up just to spend some time with me while I was up there, and she'd gotten this Verbo house. Now, I don't know if this happened, but this was a time where I was drinking heavily, and I think it was the second or third night that she'd been there. I feel like I slept the whole night.
Oh, thank you so much for the heart. Thank you.
Pretty, like, fitfully. I was moving around a lot. She said it looked like I was almost like fighting something in my sleep. So she said that she had gotten up and sat down next to the bed, and she started praying. And a few minutes into the praying, she said, I sat straight up in bed, and I looked at her with my eyes closed, and I said in some deep, not my own voice, something along the lines of, you can't have him, he's ours. And I laid back down. Now, I didn't hear about this until several months later when her and I...
Jeez!
Now, I don't know if it was the house that she had rented out for us, the vacation rental that she'd gotten for us. I mean, it was pretty creepy. It was an old house. It was the guest house, actually, of a main house. A lot of old trinkets and stuff. I mean, it was an old wood panel for the interior walls type house, and there was a bunch of old trinkets and antiques around. And like I said, I was drinking pretty heavily at the time. Thank God I'm sober now. And memory of when she told me that. So
Jeez,
yeah, that's all I got. I really love the show. Keep doing what you're doing. Bye.
Thank you, caller. Now there's a detail that keeps popping up. Some experiencers claim to hear disembodied voices seemingly fighting over them, or claiming ownership, or their soul, or whatever. I guess it all depends on your worldview. But I have more of that coming up after this quick break.
Okay. So anyway, so interesting story because I have a friend of mine. She moved, she lives in this like house, and she told me that she woke up in the middle of the night and she also had like a very like groggy voice, and she was like saying like all these like scary things. And I mean, she takes it off. She I guess, like, the way she carries it is, like, it's like, "Okay, that's funny that I said that," but I also was having this, like, really funky dream, and so I can understand that, like, the tail end of it that my, like, boyfriend heard was scary. And, yeah, we're listening to Monsters Among Us podcast. But, yeah, so she was telling me the story how, like, she said this thing and, like, it her boyfriend was creeped out, sounded scary. Her voice sounded just very just, like, tired and groggy. So, she chalked it up as, like, "Okay, well, when I wake up anyway, my voice is a little bit deeper because of that." But also, I was having, like, a weird, funny dream, and, obviously, like, when my boyfriend retells that story, it sounds scary, but I know and remember my dream that it's not what that is. So, I always like to listen to these stories, and I am super open to the paranormal, but while I do say that, I also like to find maybe another reasoning as to why like, these stories might have some other logical explanation to it before I jump into the paranormal, but I am very open to either or. So yeah, there's that. Now, with that being said, I do think that that is very creepy though, you know? So that this guy experienced what he experienced, and he's like, not sounding like me. And I've had people tell me that they've had experiences where, like, there's somebody I know on TikTok I'm mutuals with, and they were telling me that apparently that she was at a sleepover, and you know, she was saying weird things in a different language, and her half, like, she woke up, like, she blacked out, woke up, did not sound like herself, was speaking in, like, I think some other language that she doesn't even know. Like, that was scary. I was like, that is very, like, I can't find the reasoning to that one. That is very scary. So that being said, I feel like I'm open to either or. Kim says, over on YouTube, especially saying that with his eyes closed, almost like when you're sleep. Yes, like sleepwalking and stuff. The sleepwalking is also very, I don't know, that some of these stories of sleepwalking also send me chills. Thank you for liking the live over here on TikTok, KVAM. Thank you so much. So yeah, I don't know. I will see what the other stories are.
From California.
Hello, my name is Josh. I'm from Sacramento. I'm from San Francisco. That's where I was born and raised in Daly City. And adjacent to Daly City, there's another little city called Cole.
Okay. The audio is a little hard to listen to, so I'm okay with skipping the story. If you guys want me to listen to it, happy to do so. But I think the audio is a little bit hard to listen to right now.
Coma story. She wasn't around for her. The mother was that until there were a few years so emotional with Anthony. If it is enjoy very
Carissa, and I live in
At least similar to what we just heard. Carissa from Minnesota.
Yes.
Let's hear
Thank you,
your
David.
version.
David says, I always think about natural science first, although I know that the paranormal exists. Exactly. Like, I feel like it's always good to practice healthy skepticism. I always say that. Like, even though I believe in this stuff, I always try to look at it with the logical explanation first. There are definitely people out there, though, that, like, will, like, totally be on the opposite side of, like, very skeptical, will not believe, even though, like, you're showing them these things, and like, nope, I don't know. Can't be that. Anyway.
Hi, Derek. My name is Carissa, and I live in Minnesota. This is actually my first time calling in. I just started listening to your podcast this year, and I really like it. I listen to it every day. I do have an experience when I think I was around 14 or 15, living at my parents' house. I was having a dream in the middle of the night. I don't know, it seemed something like a demon was trying to take over me. Sounds really weird, but I remember getting up in the middle of the night, and I felt like I was in a dream state, but I know I was still walking. And I went into the bathroom and I looked into the mirror and I pointed to the mirror and I like jabbed the mirror with my finger and I said, "You cannot get inside of me." And I just like said it very angrily. And then I walked back to bed and I went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning and I was just super surprised as to what
Yes,
was
there
happening.
is.
I had no idea. So I didn't really share it with anybody until now. I'm 33 and I'm kind of telling people about it. So I don't know if you've ever heard of that happening before, but if you have, I'd be nice to hear. All right, thank you.
Okay, so sorry. So thank you so much, Kaylin for the likes. Thank you so much. Paranormal Ply. I'm so sorry if I mess up your username. Says there are also those with that think everything that happens is paranormal. Absolutely. And I think like I always tell people this too with like paranormal stuff. I remember so I did a paranormal workshop earlier in the year, and there was somebody there that does paranormal investigations, and they're not really on social media though, they're more on like Facebook, they told me, and which is great. But they said in the workshop, they're telling their like they brought friends to the workshop, and they were like, yeah, the fun part of paranormal investigations or exploring the paranormal is trying to debunk it until you can no longer debunk it. And I'm like, that's amazing, because like that is the best way to look at it, because if you can't find the reasoning to it, then that makes it even that much more impactful and compelling. Sorry, I messed up your username. The Paranormal Playground Podcast. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So that was something that she said, and I was like, oh, I love that. I'm gonna stick with that. Best way to describe why I think a lot of us are curious and explore the paranormal. We are exploring all different avenues before we get to the point of the paranormal, even though we do believe in it. So like for me, for example, like I had recently a paranormal experience at the Queen Mary. I know some people might have, I think Kim, you might have heard it if you're on here. But recently I went to the Queen Mary. This was, I think, earlier in the year, back in the spring. And I went to do a theatrical seance. And the magician there had all these really fun antiques and relics and stuff like that in the seance room. And he does do a story and a brief history. And we do like he does the theatrical stuff, right? Well, at the very end of this experience, he takes us outside of the room, and it's like these two glass doors. He shuts the doors, his back is facing the doors, which is the entrance to the seance room, and he's now facing the stairs. And if you ever do a tour at the Queen Mary, they do take you by these stairs. They take you to different parts of the ship, but one of them is the stairs, and they talk about the urban legends, the history of it. And so anyway, which I should probably redo a like I kind of want to do another tour because it's been so many years. But anyway, so he's by the stairs, and we're not on the stair steps though or anything like that. We're just in front of the entrance to the seance room, and to his left is these metal doors. I did a whole video on it. And I wish I could like link videos on here. But anyway, so I'm seeing like him explain to this couple that is directly in front of him, because they're asking about these dolls, these like porcelain dolls that he had in the seance room. And again, for me, I'm like, oh, whatever. They're probably just like creepy looking dolls that people think that they're haunted, but they're not haunted. But he's explaining this interesting story behind the doll that's in this wooden box. And I do recall that as we were leaving the seance room, the doll's head like popped up from the wooden box on its own, but I thought that was like his animatronics or something like that he had like set up. Thank you, Kaylin, for the likes. Oh my gosh, queen over here. So, but he's explaining like the history with the dolls, and you know, I regret not being able to listen to the whole story, but at the same time, you'll understand why I didn't. So on the left side, I see this like white orb looking thing. And I'm like blinking my eyes profusely, thinking to myself, like, oh my God, do I have an eye booger? Like what am I seeing? Like my mind is trying to register what is in front of me. Cause that was the first time I've ever seen something like that in front of me.
You cannot get in.
I've seen videos, but I've never seen something like that in front of me. So it's like walking and it walks in front of the metal doors. And again, I'm still thinking to myself, like, is there a light reflecting? Is there something? So I am looking, but then I can't really take my eyes off it because I'm trying to process what's there. And basically, it stops in front of the metal doors and you can hear the metal clanging, like it's trying to open. Like, you know, when you try to open like a metal door and you can hear like the metal, like click sound. So I'm like, what is happening here? And the girl to my right, she gasps and this thing just disappears through the doors. And if has she never been there, I would have gaslit myself thinking that it was like an eye booger or like something in front of me. But the sound of it like trying to open the doors and this disappear. And the weird part is that like neither the magician or like the couple, they're like having this conversation. They're like into whatever's happening here. But me and the girl to like the side facing the door, like that's in front of us. We're like, what the heck just happened? She gasps, turns to her sister, and she pokes her on the shoulder and she's like, did you see that? Did you see that? Her sister's like, I didn't see anything. And I will say this, her sister was wearing like a hoodie. So she had it like over her head. She was looking down because like I guess she was really religious and she didn't even want to be part of the theatrical seance at all. Like it was just something that she felt so uncomfortable with because I ended up like having that girl in the video with me to like we both discussed what we just saw. But that was the first time I ever saw anything like that. I wouldn't call it like an orb. Like it kind of reminded me of like, I mean, I guess it is an orb, kind of like a Casper. Like where it's like it's half its head and it's like half a shoulder. The more I thought about that, and you know, I actually went back later on in the summer. So this would have been August, I think I went. Yeah, August. I went back, I brought equipment, I went back to that same spot, and there was music playing in the seance room, like eerie music playing, and I'm like, oh my God, is the music just playing by itself? And I mean, here's the thing. Rather than assume that the music was playing by itself, I did end up finding the magician on Instagram. I follow him on there, and I messaged him. I said, "Hey, did you leave music playing, or did it play by itself?" And ended up being that the music played by he put the music playing for the spirits because I guess he also like does his rituals and stuff with the spirits there too. Like he honors that, so he plays music for them and yeah, so he's had experience. The other thing I will say that I don't think I've said this before when I've told the story. Before we started the theatrical seance, we were upstairs. So before you start the experience, they make you wait. I forgot what floor it is. I think it's like the second. I don't remember anymore. But it's the floor where there's a piano. You're not allowed to play with the piano, but it's that floor. And next to the piano, there's like a bar. So we went to get water by the bar, and the lady is like, "Oh, are you guys here for the theatrical seance?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're here for this experience. It looks really fun." And the bartender was telling us that there was a maintenance person there, and it was after hours, like you know, people had to go home. Like if you're not doing the tours, you have to go home. And there was no one there. And in that seance room, he was picking up like anything, like cleaning stuff and locking up the doors. And he took a photo because he thought he saw something there, but he took a photo. And have a great day. Thanks for joining. And he saw in the photo, there was a little girl that appeared and then she was showing it from her phone, like not social media. It was in her phone. Like I saw it. Like she opened up the photo album in there. I'm like, whoa, that is very, very eerie. So anyway, that's my experience with the Queen Mary. I have to say, I think I've been to a few different places. I think that is up there with like the most haunted place I've ever been to, if you will. To me, I think it's up there. Anyway, so I will end it off with that. Thank you guys so much for joining the live. This was so much fun. Thank you over here on YouTube. So I was doing a live stream on both YouTube and TikTok. I do recommend you guys, if you do like my content, you did it over here on TikTok, check out my YouTube channel with all of the stuff happening and who knows, banning and everything. Check me out on YouTube. I'm there as well. So anyway, I'm gonna end the live over here first on YouTube.